Mathologer Junior here, and look at all this cool stuff. We have the cubes, the old calculator, and a maths gnome. Look at that. And over here, we have the barber pole. Let's turn it on. Look at that. And now welcome to the Mathologer's office. Come in, if you dare.
Thank you, Mathologer Junior and Mathologer Junioress. I'll take it from here. So, welcome to my office and the 2024 Christmas Mathologer video. Yes, this year we are running with the Julian calendar, like about 1/10 of the people celebrating Christmas each year. And according to the Julian calendar, Christmas Day 2024 is on the 7th of January 2025. Go figure. Anyway, today's video is about this really cool kinetic toy. It's called the Helicone. What's so cool about it? Well, let me just show you. So this is the original version. It's a laser cut version. When I spin it, it turns into a pine cone. Very cool. Okay, here's the second version. It's made from plastic, usually called lollipopter. You can see why, guys. It really looks like a lollipopter. And well, in this video, I'll just be talking about the helicone, all right? Now, just like real plants that look like this, the helicone incorporates a lot of the numbers of nature. The golden ratio, Fibonacci numbers, heaps and heaps of spirals. It's just a great model of nature. All right, now what even people who own this don't know is that a multi-layer version, they say like 2000 layers, can act as a very powerful microscope to probe the nature of numbers. And just to whet your appetite in this respect, I've prepared a slideshow consisting of some of the spectacular images that you get when you zoom in on the square root of 2. Have a look. Intrigued? I sure hope so. To be able to show you more, I've programmed myself a virtual helicone lab in Mathematica. So lots of maths and cool imagery to look forward to, all the secrets of the helicone microscope, and the nature of numbers. Enjoy. This is a virtual helicone with 31 layers using 5 different colors, just like in the real thing. With this slider here, I can recreate the full helicone twist and untwist actions that takes us between the 2 different states of this little marble. There. Very nice, isn't it? Now, going back. All right. And with these 3 buttons, I can switch between 3 different views. There's view number 1, and then there's the top view. The 5 double spirals really show up nicely this way. And here's the side view. The cyclic repeat of the colors pops out nicely in this way. Blue, turquoise, green, orange, red, back to blue, and then repeat over and over. Other controls allow me to modify parameters that cannot be changed easily in the physical model. For example, I can make a core appear to highlight the leaves. I can adjust the intensity of the colors like this. I can change the number of colors. Interesting. Coloring the levels cyclically with 5 different colors ends up highlighting 5 double spirals. Coloring with 3 colors ends up highlighting 3 different double spirals. We'll explore this color magic in detail in a minute. But first, let's scroll through the layers from top to bottom. Okay, scroll, scroll, scroll. As we scroll down, it looks like something is spinning at a constant rate. This is because consecutive layers are a constant special angle apart. In biology, this sort of angle is often referred to as a divergence angle. To measure the divergence angle of our helicone, let's switch back to the top view and go in reverse, building the helicone back up layer by layer. Okay, add the second layer. The angle between these 2 layers is about 68.75 degrees. And as I said, this angle is the same from layer to layer. They're the same angle and the same again. This divergence angle is exactly half the golden angle, which is approximately 137.5 degrees. And what makes our divergence angle golden? It's the fact that this division of the circle into two parts is in the golden ratio phi, 1.618 ... As most of you will know, this ratio has many remarkable, desirable and useful properties and pops up in mathematics and nature all over the place. In particular, the circle being divided in the golden ratio means that this golden ratio is present in two different ways in the picture in front of us. On the one hand, it's equal to the green angle divided by the golden angle, but on top of that, it's also equal to the full 360 degrees divided by the green angle. Full divided by large is equal to large divided by small is equal to 1.618 ... Great! Also important for later, the golden ratio is an irrational number and so cannot be written as a fraction. In fact, in some sense, it is the most irrational of all irrational numbers. And this turns out to be one of the reasons why the golden ratio is so prevalent in nature. We'll also get to that in a little while. As well, the golden angle and its complement are irrational angles. Those angles up there are really just approximations. Anyway, remember, half the golden angle is at the core of our helicone. Again, note that in this top-down view of the helicone, the 5 double spirals really jump out. Okay, at the start of this video I said that nature's numbers are hiding in the helicone. Well, we've just seen the golden ratio. Next are the Fibonacci numbers, nature's favorite playlist. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on. I'm sure you all know how the Fibonacci sequence is built, but just in case you're late to this party, the simple growth rule of the Fibonacci numbers goes like this. Starting with 1 and 2, two consecutive turns of the sequence always add up to the next term. There, 1 plus 2 is 3. 2 plus 3 is 5, 3 plus 5 is 8, and so on. So, where are the Fibonacci numbers hiding in the helicone? Well, we see one Fibonacci number, the number 5, right in front of us. 5 colors highlight 5 double spirals in the helicone. And now it turns out that this is not a coincidence, but part of a cool rule. Cyclically coloring the layers with any small Fibonacci number of colors highlights exactly that number of different double spirals. Let me show you in a slightly larger helicone with 60 layers. Whoa, they are just one color. And featuring that constant angle between consecutive layers, the whole helicone can be considered as being just one big double spiral, right? One color, one double spiral. Two colors, two double spirals. One red double spiral and one green double spiral. Let me just highlight the pair of red spirals for you. There, that's one of the two red spirals, and the remaining red leaves combine into the second spiral. Similarly, the green leaves form a second double spiral. Using two colors, all the leaves really split into two double spirals. Neat! The next Fibonacci number is 3, and again, 3 double spirals. Next is 5, 5 double spirals, 8 and 13. Well, a bit harder to pick out those 13 double spirals. Anyway, there's one red spiral, one half of the red double spiral. While we're at it, notice that the larger the Fibonacci number, the steeper the spiral. Also, the spirals alternate slanting to the left and right. Have another look. 13, steep, slanting right. Now 8, a bit less steep, slanting left. 5, shallower, slanting right, and so on. What happens when you use a number of colors that's not a Fibonacci number? Well, let's see. Here's 6. A mess. Well, there's still a little bit of structure there if you look closely, but nothing as amazingly nice as with a Fibonacci number of colors. There, 7. Another mess. All right, loads of spirals, golden ratio and golden angle, Fibonacci numbers, tick, 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 tick. Helicones are definitely teeming with nature's numbers and philotactic magic. Now, before I show you my Helicone microscope, let me introduce you to a super fun Christmas-infused magic that I discovered while playing with my Helicone lab and decorating the Mathologer Christmas tree. Okay, let's reshape our Helicone into a Christmas tree. Not bad, But we can do better. Let's use baubles instead of cylinder leaves. Nice. But now let's also adjust the bauble sizes a bit for a better fit around the tree. Whoa, super pretty, huh? What else? Well, we're missing a crown. How about a nice mathematical one, like a small stellated dodecahedron? Or how about a great stellated dodecahedron? Also not bad. But I've got more choices. I've programmed a helicone lab in Mathematica, and so how about Wolfram's spiky for a crown? Last but not least, a famous 3D Christmas star, the Moravian star, or the Herrnhuter Stern, as it's known in Germany, where I grew up. Spent an hour creating this one from scratch. Totally worth it. Okay, which one do you like best? Small or great stellated dodecahedron, Wolfram's spiky, or Herrnhuter Stern? Let me know in the comments. My personal favorite for this setup is this one, the small stellated dodecahedron. Okay, now here is a nice Christmas application of our helicone magic, a Fibonacci light show. Enjoy! How did you like my Fibonacci Christmas tree? The only tree that comes pre-assembled with Fibonacci magic. Baubles sold separately. Spectacular, huh? Challenge for the Christmas fanatics and programmers among you. Decorate a real Christmas tree this way and send me a nice recording of the Fibonacci light show in action. Or create an online helicone lab that mimics mine to share with others. At the end of February, I'll link to all the submissions from this page and select the winning entry from among all your submissions. And I'll send the winner a signed copy of one of my books. Now, before I forget, here's a quick history lesson. The helicone was invented by John Edmark in 2008. John teaches design at Stanford University and is world-renowned for his spectacular kinetic artworks. Check out the description of this video for more details and a link to a presentation in which John talks about some of his masterpieces. Now, John told me that the original helicone featuring 80 leaves was a present for his professor on his professor's 80th birthday. Okay, but what about the number microscope that I promised you? Coming right up. At this point, let me just fire up my microscope and show it to you in action. See whether you can fill in the missing details between what I've shown you so far and what you are about to see. I'll also spell out those details later on. Okay, the microscope has three main controls. The number of circles or leaves, which is currently 30, but ranges all the way from 1 to 2000. Then we have the number of spirals. Currently, we've got 5 spirals. Interesting. Not double spirals, just single spirals. Anyway, we can set the number of spirals to be any number between 1 and the number of leaves. Also interesting, any number of spirals, not just Fibonacci numbers of spirals. And the third control is a divergence angle. Now, this divergence angle is not given as an angle in degrees as before, but as a number between 0 and 1. We'll make sense of this later. To start with, the divergence angle is set to 0.618. Note that 0.618 is the fractional part of the golden ratio. All right, let's play. First, let's up the numbers of leaves a bit. Let's go up in increments of 10. There, 40. 50. All right, that's 180 leaves. Right now we're still looking at 5 spirals. Okay, let's up the number of spirals by 1, so 6 spirals is next. Whoa, what just happened? Well, don't worry, let's just keep going. 7, 8, aha, Fibonacci, exactly 8 nice spirals. Familiar territory. Now, 9, mess, but a nice mess, right? 10, 11, 12, 13 is next. What do you expect to see? Yep, 13 neat spirals. 14, 15, 16, actually, that does look pretty spirally, right? Well, 16 is not a Fibonacci number. However, 16 is 2 times 8, and 8 is a Fibonacci number. There, that was the picture for 8 again, and back to 16. So basically for 16, every one of those 8 spirals splits into 2. Neat. Keep going. 17. That's pretty insane. 18, 19, 20. Next one is the Fibonacci number 21, and bingo! 26, 2 times the Fibonacci number 13. 34 Fibonacci, jump straight to the next Fibonacci number 55. Now, let's stay with those 55 spirals, but up the number of leaves. Now, count up to the next Fibonacci number, just take it in. Wow, spectacular, isn't it? Another interesting one, 63, 3 times the Fibonacci number 21. And actually what you see here is 3 spirals each for every one of those 21 spirals that we saw before. 68, that's 2 times the Fibonacci number 34. All right, keep going, and 89, another Fibonacci number. Okay, so currently the third control, the divergence angle, is set to 0.618, the fractional part of the golden ratio. And in the first instance, what the microscope allows us to do is to visually generate the sequence of Fibonacci numbers, right? Just increment the number of spirals and leaves and wait for some of these spirals to actually look like really spirally spirals to visually pinpoint the Fibonacci numbers without doing any calculations. That's pretty cool, isn't it? What if we change the divergence angle to another famous number between 0 and 1, like for example the fractional part of pi, 0.141592 ... Do we visually get a different sequence of integers? What is it? Is there a deeper meaning to all this? Okay, let's explore. First, dial back to smaller numbers of leaves and spirals. 91 leaves and 3 spirals. Now switch the third control, the divergence angle, to the fractional part of pi. Wow, starfish, cute! No longer any clearly defined spirals for pi. Let's up the number of colors again. 4, 5, 6, 7. Woo, 7 spirals. Definitely not Fibonacci, but boy, do those 7 spirals stand out. Much more than any of the spirals we've seen so far. What has 7 to do with pi? Well, what do you think? What do you think of first when you hear 7 and pi? Well, 22/7, of course. That crazy good fractional small numbers approximation of pi. Wait, what? Yes, this is not a coincidence. Okay, enough just mucking around with the microscope. Time to really explain what's going on here. There, that's our 3-colored helicone. They're actually plants that grow like this, with 2 opposing branches at every level and consecutive layers placed half the golden angle apart. However, what is much more common are plants with just 1 branch per level and levels placed a full golden angle apart. And here's a 1-branch helicone that is built this way. However, that's not the end of it. There are also plants that feature 3 branches at every level. A corresponding helicone would look like this. Instead of a single and double spirals, we have triple spirals in this one. Neat. No reason to stop here, of course. 4 branches per level is next. But first, what about the divergence angle of a trefoil helicone? Well, easy to guess. It's half the golden angle for 2 branches per level. It's a full golden angle for 1 branch per level. And so it should be 1/3 of a golden angle for a 3-branch helicone. 1/4 of a golden angle for 4 branches, etc., right? Challenge for the keen among you, 3D print one of those trefoil helicones. Has not been done yet. There are largely identical microscopes corresponding to the different helicones, but there are also some subtle differences. Anyway, to start with, what I showed you is the simplest microscope that corresponds to the 1-branch helicone on the left. So the default divergence angle for that one is the golden angle, and we have single spirals and not double spirals. Okay, let's make sense of this microscope. At first glance, it looks like the microscope just shows a tidied up top view of a helicone. True, but there are also some important added features. First, let's label the leaves from the bottom up, starting with 0. There, that's the leaf at level 0. Level 1, level 2, 3, and so on. Here, the lower the level, the further away from the center the leaf is. Let's return to leaf 0. What's the angle between leaf 0 and leaf 1 again? Well, that's supposed to be the golden angle. Let's check. Well, yes, there's a golden angle down there. There's another one between 1 and 2, between 2 and 3, and so on. Business as usual. But remember, unlike in our helicone, where the divergence angle is recorded in degrees, In the microscope, it's recorded as 0.618, which, also remember, is the fractional part of the golden ratio. What we do here is, instead of recording angles in degrees, we represent them as parts of a full circle, a number between 0 and 1. So 0.618 indicates 0.618 of a full circle. To convert this into degrees, you simply multiply it by 360. In this case, 0.618 of a full circle corresponds to 360 degrees times 0.618 equals 222.5 degrees, which is not the golden angle, but almost. Remember, that's the complement of the golden angle. Of course, for the purpose of recording how far radially apart consecutive leaves are, both angles are just fine. Anyway, let's just run with this way of recording divergence angles. Okay, now, how are the spirals constructed? In the microscope, we don't rely on spirals visually jumping out at us anymore. Instead, we use those numbers to connect the dots. Let's construct the 3 spirals corresponding to the number 3. Start with 0 on the right and keep adding 3. Okay, so 0 plus 3 is 3, plus 3 is 6, plus 3 is 9, then 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27. First spiral finished. For the second spiral, start with 1 and again keep adding 3. 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 3 is 7, 10, 13, and so on. Third spiral starting with 2, keep adding 3, done. The same simple construction gives you n spirals when you use the constant increment n. Say n is 4, 0 plus 4 is 4, plus 4 is 8, plus 4 is 12, and so on. Doesn't look like much of a spiral since it intersects itself. Anyway, starting with 1, 2, and 3 gives 3 more such spiral abominations. Now, at first glance, these number-based spirals may appear to be totally different from those purely color-based ones that we dealt with in the helicone. But that's actually not true. On close inspection, the only difference is that in the microscope, all the leaves of one color are always connected into a curve by line segments. Have a look. If these are the levels colored with 4 colors as before, then our new number-based green curve really just connects the green leaves. They are 1, plus 4 is 4, plus 4 is 8, and so on. The blue curve connects the blue levels, and so on. Anyway, the number-based spirals used in the microscope are definitely the way to go when it comes to further highlighting the overall distribution and structure of the leaves of one color for large numbers of leaves and spirals. All right. Let's stick with 4 spirals and up the number of leaves a bit. All right, up and up. All right, now 5 spirals. 5 is Fibonacci, 6, 7, 8 is Fibonacci. Okay, this is what we get for the divergence angle of 0.618 and so on. In the previous chapter, we just played around with the microscope. We now switch to the fractional part of pi for the divergence angle. Now, before we try to make sense of irrational divergent angles, like this fractional part of pi, let's first make sense of the much simpler rational divergence angles that are fractions. What's the angle associated with 1/4? Easy, right? A quarter of 360 degrees, that's 90 degrees. Can you picture what the distribution of leaves will look like for 90 degrees? Super simple. Makes sense, right? From leaf to leaf, we rotate by 90 degrees. There, there. And in this way, the leaves arrange themselves into 4 straight arms at 90 degrees. If the number is 1/7, we get 7 straight arms. Actually, it's clear that if the number is a fraction a divided by b, then the leaves will all end up on b equally spaced straight arms. But what's also important to note is that these straight arms may only become visible in the microscope once the number of leaves is much larger than the denominator b. For example, here is the picture for 1/23 and 41 leaves. So the number of leaves is only about twice the denominator 23, and so the 23 arms are not visible yet. However, when we crank up the number of leaves to 200, the arms become clearly visible. And with 2200 leaves, the 23 arms is all we see. Also, if you perturb our number by a tiny little bit, for example at 1/1000th, then the straight arms get twisted slightly. If you minus the tiny bit instead of adding it, the arms twist in the opposite direction. Now, 1/23 minus 1/1000 is equal to 977 divided by 23,000. And this means that if we up the number of leaves to say 10 times the denominator, we'll end up seeing 23,000 equally spaced straight arms. All clear? Good. Now, that gives us a pretty good feel for what the overall leaf pattern will look like if we're dealing with a divergence angle that's a fraction. And how does our number-based game of connecting the leaves into spirals play out for these rational angles? Well, basically, all the nice, clearly visible spirally spirals run along the arms and correspond to numbers that are factors or multiples of the number of arms. On the other hand, all the spiral abominations jump from arm to arm and form spiderwebs between the arms. These spiderwebs also make for nice Christmas decorations. Have a look. In this example, 2 spirals winding around the 23 arms look like this. 3 spirals, 4, and so on. That's 23 spirals running along the 23 arms. 46 double 23 would also run along those 23 arms, and so on. Everything else? Christmas decorations. Nice! So what happens for rational angles in the microscope, that is, angles that can be expressed as fractions, is really easy to make sense of. Well, don't worry if you did not get all of this 100%. As long as you got the gist of it, you'll be fine for the rest of the video. Anyway, I think it's also clear that if the number we're dealing with is an irrational number, like the fractional parts of the golden ratio or pi, then it's impossible for the leaves to ever settle down into perfectly straight arms emanating from the center. And with these remarks about rational divergence angles, we are now ready to make sense of the irrational fractional part of pi, 0.141592, ... What's the angle in degrees that corresponds to this fractional part of pi? Easy. 360 degrees times 0.1415 ... That's about 51 degrees. 51 degrees between leaves. Interesting, but does not give much insight. Much more important is what we saw in the microscope for small numbers of leaves. Remember? 7 clearly defined spirals or arms. So that's pretty much the same picture as for 1/7, with a tiny bit of a perturbation thrown in. And of course, that's true. That fractional part of pi turns out to be 1/7 minus a tiny little bit, minus 0.00126 ... to be precise. Add 3 on both sides of the equal sign, and you get pi on one side and 3 1/7 on the other side. And of course, 3 plus 1/7, that's just our familiar 22/7. Okay. So what turns out to be the case is that those special integers detected by our number microscope correspond to really good fraction approximations of the divergence angle, as well as of all numbers whose fractional part is that divergence angle. Let's zoom in on the fractional part of pi by adding more leaves. Unlike in the case of the fractional part of the golden ratio, you really have to add a lot of leaves before you see new spirals popping out. Here we've upped things to about 2,000 leaves, and what we see highlighted here is still our 7 spirals from before. This is one of them, winding around and around. Let's see what we get here in terms of the individual leaves. All right, zoom in. Okay, pretty obvious what numbers will give nice visible spirals. Add 113, add 113 again and again. 106 would also work, or 120. Okay, let's check. Here's what you get for 106. And this is what you get for 113. Whoa! And here's 120. Among these three numbers, 106, 113 and 120, which one's the best? Well, 113 is the best in the sense that it produces the straightest spirals and therefore should correspond to a crazy good fraction approximation of pi. To figure out what approximation we're dealing with here is also very easy. Just multiply pi by 113. As you can see, we get something very close to 355, and this means that 355 divided by 113 should be the approximation we're looking for. All right. And just to check, here are the first few digits of this fraction that coincide with those of pi highlighted in red. Pretty amazing, huh? We have a coincidence in the first 7 digits of pi. Really very, very good. In fact, after 3 and 22/7, 355 divided by 113 is the most famous rational approximation of pi. This amazing approximation was first discovered by the Chinese mathematician Zhu Chongzhi in the 5th century. Here's a very nice way of remembering it. 1, 1, 3, 3, 5, 5, the first 3 odd numbers all doubled up, split in half, and you get the denominator and numerator of our fantastic approximation. Commit this to memory. On your deathbed, this will be part of the quiz that decides whether you go to mathematical heaven or hell. Now, 106 is another number that's visible in the microscope. However, here the spirals are nowhere near as straight, and consequently we expect the approximation corresponding to it to be not as good as the one corresponding to 113. Let's check. Yeah, and so the approximation corresponding to 106 is 333 divided by 106, a 5 digits coincidence. Definitely very good. However, nowhere near the 7-digit coincidence that we get with 355 divided by 113. What about 120, our third special number? Only 4 digits. Anyway, 113 is the standout. But of course, since pi is irrational, even those 113 spirals are not perfectly straight and eventually will twist around the circle many times to reveal even straighter spirals. Here the next magical number after 113 is 33,215, and the corresponding fraction is 104,348 divided by 33,215. 10 digits of coincidence. Insane. But of course, to see that 33,215 in the microscope, you'd need something like 1,000,000 leaves. Definitely my Mac is not happy when I ask for that number of leaves and responds with a different kind of spiral-infused circle. But as I already mentioned, since pi is irrational, there is no end to this sequence of magical fractions. And of course you can play this game for any number to pin down those amazing rational approximations. Here's another example. Here's what you get for root 5 when you zoom in on its fractional part. There, 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 there. 682 divided by 305, giving a 6-digit coincidence. Yeah, also pretty good. And do you see that I and 6 inspired Mathologer Jr. to make a totally different connection. Gojo's 6 eyes in Jujutsu Kaisen. Well, I don't know. All right, so what the microscope does in the first instance is to find great rational approximations of numbers. In turn, these rational approximations give valuable insights into the nature of numbers. They also have a lot of real-world applications, for example, designing fancy calendars to ensure Christmas lands on the right day for the next 1,000,000 years, and designing optimal gear systems for clocks and orreries. Also on my to-do list for Mathologer. Anyway, to finish this video, let's use what we've found so far to build some intuition for why nature is so biased towards golden ratio divergence angles. What does it actually mean for 22/7 to be a great approximation of pi, right? Not obvious. No doubt, 22/7 is an approximation of pi that works well enough for many practical purposes. But then, as we've seen, 355 divided by 113 is a lot better, and that third monster fraction over there is even better. So, why do we say that 22/7 is a great rational approximation, since there are much better ones? In fact, sticking with approximating pi for the moment, it's a no-brainer to find rational approximations based on the decimal expansion of pi that are as close to pi as we wish. Just to illustrate, say you're looking for a fraction that differs from pi by less than 1,000. Easy peasy. Just make the first 4 digits of pi into the 4-digit number 3141 and divide by 1000. Obviously, that's a fraction that differs from pi by less than 1000. And if you want the difference to be 1 billionth, just use the first 10 digits of pi. So really, why do we get so excited about fractions like 22/7 and 355 divided by 113? Well, let me explain. Let's say we fix an integer like 7 and consider all the fractions with denominator 7. Then these fractions correspond to points on the number line that are 1/7 apart. Since pi is also somewhere on the number line, maybe there, and this means that among the fractions, the one closest to pi must differ from pi by less than 1/7. Obvious, right? But that then means that overall we can expect better approximations from fractions with larger denominators, right? Of course, in the case of denominator 7, the closest fraction to pi is 22/7. But then 22/7 is special in that none of the fractions with denominator 8 are better approximations to pi, none of the fractions with denominator 9 are better, and none with denominator 10 are better. In fact, very surprisingly, we have to go all the way up to denominator 57 to find a fraction that beats 22/7. Have a look at this table, which lists the best rational approximations by denominators. So there's a no-brainer approximation 3 at the top, corresponding to the first possible denominator, 1. Then denominator 2 and 3 don't give anything better. The first denominator giving a better approximation is 4. Then 5 gives something better than 4. 6 gives something better than 5. And 7 gives something better than 6. And then there's this big jump to 57. Let's add a column that also lists the differences between consecutive denominators. Isn't that very interesting? So you see, 3 and 22/7 and their denominators, 1 and 7, really stand out in 2 different ways, not just one. On the one hand, it's those 2 denominators, 1 and 7, where the most significant jumps occur. But then we also see 1 and 7 over and over as the differences next to those best rational approximations that don't stick around for very long. So cool, isn't it? Okay, now, for which denominator does the next significant jump occur? I think you can all guess by now. 113. Aha! Have a look at the fraction just above. 333 divided by 106. Remember, we also stumbled across that one before. There again is 113. There is 106. But then notice that you also get the denominators further up. There, 99. 92, and so on. And actually these special denominators also jump out as spirally spirals in the microscope, just as very twisted spirally spirals. And why are 113, 106, 99, 92 and so on nicely lined up like this? Well, of course, because being 7 apart, they are all part of one of the 7 standout spirals. Ponder that for a moment. 113, 106, 99, 92 and so on are all part of one of the 7 spirals. Oh, good? Great. Anyway, now you know in what sense 22/7 and 355 divided by 113 are extra special best rational approximations of pi. And I think it's also intuitively clear why the denominators of these special fractions should stand out when we zoom in on a number in our microscope. It's just that as we zoom in, because of the big jumps, these denominators stay visible for a long time and end up being the by far straightest standout spirals at different levels of magnification. If you're interested in a nifty purely algebraic way of generating the standout best rational approximation based on infinite continued fractions, I recommend this Mathologer video from a couple of years ago. All right, what we encountered so far can also give us some clues as to why it is the golden ratio divergence angle that is prominent in nature. Let's say nature has decided to build a plant, like a 1 branch per level helicone. Nature can choose among infinitely many different divergence angles. Why does it choose the golden ratio? Why is this distribution of leaves of seeds of florets, corresponding to the golden ratio, superior to this one, corresponding to √5, or this one, corresponding to pi? Well, if you look at it from nature's point of view, then anything that tends to settle down into essentially straight arms, as in the case of √5 or pi, is not great, as that would translate into plants like this tree, with the leaves stacked up one on top of the other, thereby preventing sunlight to reach the leaves. As Mother Nature, I don't want this. Also, in the case of flower heads, this sort of stacking along arms would never happen, because the growth mechanism in flower heads ensures a constant divergence angle while simultaneously arranging the florets to achieve maximum density. You just don't get a dense packing along straight arms. And to prevent leaves to settle into straight arms, you really want the denominators in your sequence of super duper best rational approximations to be as close together as possible. And this turns out to be exactly the case when nature chooses the divergence angle to be the fractional part of the golden ratio. In fact, when you zoom in on the golden distribution of leaves by upping the number of leaves in the microscope, you'll always see not just one, but two types of spirals, corresponding to two consecutive Fibonacci numbers fighting for dominance and violently twisting in opposite directions. Have a look. There are just a few leaves, and all you can see on the outside are two sets of spirals dominating, 8 shallow blue ones and 13 steep red ones. Add a few more leaves and blink your eyes, and 13 and 21 are now dominating on the outside, and so on. All super neat and magical, don't you think? And this definitely gives some intuition as to why the golden angle works well in nature. Having said that, it's definitely not a full explanation. If you're after a fairly full explanation, check out this video again from a couple of years ago. Let me finish with two remarks. First, a nice surprise awaits in the sequence of best approximations for the golden ratio divergence angle. Definitely an obvious question to ask at this point: what are the best rational approximations of the golden ratio? Well, turns out that these are exactly the fractions corresponding to the Fibonacci number denominators. Here are those fractions: 3 over 2, 5 over 3, 8 over 5. But wait a minute, do you see a pattern? Yes, denominator and numerator always appear to be consecutive Fibonacci numbers. Let's check a couple more cases. Yep, works, works, works. And it's actually not hard to prove that the sequence of best rational approximations of the golden ratio really is the sequence of ratios of consecutive Fibonacci numbers. Also, did you notice just how bad these best rational approximations of the golden ratio are compared to those of pi? That one up there is already the 7th best rational approximation of phi, and it only coincides in the first 3 digits of phi. So in a sense, it seems hard to find good rational approximations of the golden ratio. Phi is an irrational number that is hard to approximate with rational numbers. And so, in a way, it is a very irrational number. In fact, in a very precise sense, the golden ratio is characterized by the fact that it is the most irrational of all irrational numbers. This is also evident in the microscope, where none of the prominent spirals at any level of magnification appear perfectly straight. Again, in a very precise sense, it's true to say that nature prefers golden ratio divergence angles because the golden ratio is the most irrational number. And again, check out this video for more about this interesting observation. And now let me really finish off with a bit of a golden ratio puzzle that arises when you play with the microscope that corresponds to the original 2 leaves per level helicone. 2 leaves per level means 2 leaves labeled 0. Then there are also 2 leaves labeled 1. One I've written the right side up and the other one upside down. Then 2 2s, again one written right side up, one upside down, 2 3s, and so on. All right, here are our 3 double spirals. We construct the first connected spiral used in the microscope in the usual way by starting with the zeros and adding 3s over and over. And so 0, 3, 6, etc., as well as upside down 0, 3, 6 are strung together into a double spiral. Here's what you get when you switch to 5 colors. But then drawing in the connected spirals by adding 5s over and over results in a surprise. Where did this abomination come from? Turns out that what you have to do to string together the double spirals that visually jump out is to alternate between numbers and upside down numbers. There, normal 0, 0 plus 5 is upside down 5 plus 5, normal 10, plus 5 upside down 15. With 8, we also have to string the leaves together in this alternating way. Then 13 requires all right side up stringing again, checking what sort of stringing needs to be done for the first couple of Fibonacci numbers, then suggest a simple pattern. Here blue stands for alternating stringing and red for normal stringing. Can you explain this pattern? What pattern do you get for trefoil helicones? Leave your answers in the comments. Also, I've really just touched on some of the secrets becoming manifest in those spectacular images produced by the Helicone microscope. If you end up playing with the Helicone microscope yourself and discover anything interesting, please also let us know in the comments. And that's all for today. I hope that you enjoyed today's crazy excursion into Helicone maths. If there's anything you did not understand, please ask me to clarify in the comments.